How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chafei, Daf 25, Masechta BavaKama. So we're going to start the Mishnah Daf Chaf Daled Amud Beis. It's arguably interesting. I'm not in like the regular mood that I'm normally in. There's a lot going on, so I'm just going to get moving. All right. So we're going to start in Daf Chaf Daled Amud Beis at the Mishnah. Shor Mazik B'Shus HaNizak Keitzad. So this gets back to a Gemara that we had on Daf Tes Zayin, that we had mentioned the 5 muads, right? The 5 Shora muads. And one of the things that we mentioned was Shora Mazik B'Shus HaNizak, which we explained is talking about if they ox scores in Reuven's ox scores in Shimon's property, and we had said there that it's Nezek Shalim, like Reb Tarfin, and we're going to see. So Shora Mazik B'Shus HaNizak Keitzad, right? So how exactly is this Shora Mazik B'Shus HaNizak? Nogach Noshach Ravatz Bat. So if it gored or used its body to damage, or bit, or trampled, or kicked, B'Shus HaRabim, in Rishus HaRabim, Mishalem Chatzi Nezek, right? It's Be'etzim Keren in Rishus HaRabim, so it's Chatzi Nezek. B'Rishus HaNizak, now if this happens in the Rishus of the Nizak, so then Reb Tarfin Omer Nezek Shalim. So Reb Tarfin says that it's Nezek Shalim, right? Because Reb Tarfin says that Keren B'Rishus HaNizak, a short tam, right? Mushuna Keren B'Chatzi Nizak is Nezek Shalim. Chacham B'Om Chatzi Nezek. Whereas the Chacham say that there's no difference between Rishus HaRabim and Rishus HaYachid. Keren by a short time is going to be Chatzi Nezek, either in Rishus HaRabim or in Rishus HaYachid. Amalem Reb Tarfin. So now Reb Tarfin comes with his explanation of why it should be Nezek Shalim in why it should be Nezek Shalim in the Chatzor HaNizak, why short tam Keren should be Nezek Shalim in the Rishus HaNizak. So I'm Reb Tarfin. So Reb Tarfin says, "Uma b'makom shehekel al hashen v'al haregel b'Rishus HaRabim shehu poter hechmer alein b'Rishus HaNizak l'shalom Nezek Shalim." Right. So says Reb Tarfin, if you think about it, right. So when it comes to shein and regel b'Rishus HaRabim, so shein and regel and Rishus HaRabim, right, shehu poter, that we're lenient there, that we say that shein and regel is potter entirely in Rishus HaRabim, at least for Nizakin. Hechmer alein b'Rishus HaNizak l'shalom Nezek Shalim. And Rishus HaNizak, we are more stringent, and we say that you have to pay full damages. So makom shehechmir ala Keren b'Rishus HaRabim l'shalom Chatzi Nezek. Now, if we look at Keren, that we're already more stringent by Keren, that in Rishus HaRabim you pay Chatzi Nezek, right? By shein and regel in Rishus HaRabim, it's nothing, and by Keren in Rishus HaRabim, it's more stringent. It's Chatzi Nezek. So enu din shenachmir olav b'Rishus HaNizak l'shalom Nezek Shalim. So then certainly, if by Keren in Rishus HaRabim we're already being more stringent and saying it's Chatzi Nezek, so then all the more so in Rishus HaNizak we should say Nezek Shalim, right? Meaning, if by shein and regel we're more lenient in Rishus HaRabim, that you don't have to pay any of the nizakin, and yet we mamish go to the other extreme in Rishus HaNizak, and we say that it's Nezek Shalim. So then, by Keren, which we're already more stringent in Rishus HaRabim, that it's Chatzi Nezek, certainly then we should go to the fullest extent in Rishus HaNizak and say Nezek Shalim. Amru lo. So now this is going to be basically the focus, I'd say, of this daf is Amru lo. They said to Reb Tarfin, Dayo lovu min hadin lios kanidon, that, well, when you learn something out from a kal v'chomer, then you should kind of apply the rules of that which you're learning from to that which you're learning to. Meaning, if in this case we're learning Keren in Rishus Hanizak from Keren in Rishus Harabim, right? And we're saying, well, if by Keren in Rishus Harabim we're already being more stringent, so then certainly it should apply in Rishus Hanizak, but it should apply in the same way, right? Meaning, if you think about the machlokes, if you kind of understand the kavachomer in the following way, which is, well, if when it comes to shein and regel, that in Rishus Harabim we're lenient, well then in Rishus HaYachid we should be, right, if when it comes to shein and regel, that in Rishus Harabim we're lenient and that there's no payment, and yet in Rishus Hanizak we're stringent, that there is payment, so then certainly by Keren, where we're already more stringent in Rishus Harabim, certainly we should be stringent in Rishus Hanizak. But if we're comparing Keren in Rishus Harabim to Keren in Rishus Hanizak, and we're saying, well, we're already stringent by Keren in Rishus Harabim, so we should certainly be stringent and that there should be payment in Rishus Hanizak. But let's say, what payment should it be? Should it be Chatzi Nezek? Should it be Nezek Shalim? It should be Chatzi Nezek. Right? That if we're learning out Keren in the Rishus Hanizak from Keren in the Rishus Harabim, so then we should say that, well, let's have a look at Keren in Rishus Harabim. Keren in Rishus Harabim is Chatzi Nezek, so Keren in Rishus Hanizak should also be Chatzi Nezek. That if we're learning out Keren in Rishus Hanizak from Keren in Rishus Harabim, it should be exactly the same. Right? So again, so they said to Reb Tarfon, so Reb Tarfon of course had said that Keren in Rishus Hanizak is Nezek Shalim. But the Chacham say Keren of a short time in Rishus Hanizak is Chatzi Nezek. They say to Reb Tarfon, that something that you learn out from a kavachomer should mamash be like the thing that you're learning it from. That just like in Rishus Harabim, Keren of a short time is Chatzi Nezek, so also in Rishus Hanizak it is Chatzi Nezek. So the kavachomer will teach us that there's a payment in the Rishus Hanizak, but in terms of how much it is, it'll be the same as in Rishus Harabim, it'll be Chatzi Nezek. Amar Loim. So Reb Tarfon says, look. Reb Tarfon says, look. Af ani lo odun Keren mi Keren. Ani odun Keren mi regel. Rather says Reb Tarfon, look, leave Keren out of it. Right? You're saying that you love min adin lios kanidon, right? Keren in Rishus Hanizak should be like Keren in Rishus Harabim. Leave out Keren. We're not learning out the kavachomer from Keren. Leave out Keren. The kavachomer is coming from regel. Right? So again, afani lo odun mi Keren. I won't learn out the kavachomer from Keren. Ani odun Keren mi regel. I'll learn out that, Keren b'Rishus Hanizak from regel. Uma b'makom shehekel ala shein v'ala regel b'Rishus Harabim hechmir b'Keren. Well, if in Rishus Harabim we're more lenient by shein and regel, that there is no nezek payments, and yet we're stringent in the Rishus of the Nizak, that there is nezek payments. So makom shehechmir ala shein v'ala regel. No, what? No, I'm sorry, I messed up. Makom shehekel ala shein v'ala regel b'Rishus Harabim hechmir b'Keren. That even though in Rishus Harabim we're lenient by shein and regel, I'm reading that again, that we're lenient by shein and regel, that there is no payment in Rishus Harabim, and yet Keren in Rishus Harabim there is payment, there's Chatzi Nezek. So makom shehechmir ala shein v'ala regel b'Rishus Hanizak. So now if we're being stringent by shein and regel b'Rishus Hanizak, to say that it's Nezek Shalim, eino din shenachmir b'Keren, so then certainly we should be machmir when it comes to Keren and say that it should be Nezek Shalim, right? If in Rishus Harabim where we're lenient by shein and regel, and yet we're machmir, we're more stringent by Keren, so certainly in Rishus, right, that's in Rishus Harabim, so certainly then in Rishus Hanizak, where we're stringent by shein and regel, that it's Nezek Shalim, then all the more so that Keren, which already seems to be more stringent, should be Nezek Shalim. Amrulo, to which the rabbis respond still, Dayulov min adin lios kanidon, that but still ultimately this is the kal and the chomer is coming from Keren. Keren is the more stringent thing that we're learning from right? The fact that, Karen is more stringent than Chain V'Regel, that is what enables us to make this Kal V'Chomer. So Ma B'Rishus HaRab Chatzi Nezek, Ha B'Rishus HaNizak Chatzi Nezek. So say the Chacham, look, ultimately we are learning out the stringency from Chatzi Nezek, that in Rishus HaRab it's already from Karen, that in Rishus HaRab it's already Chatzi Nezek. So then we're gonna apply that also to Rishus HaNizak and say Dayo Lov Min Adin Lios Kanidon, and say that Karen B'Rishus HaNizak is going to be Chatzi Nezek as well. Now, for the Gemara, Reb Tarfon Leislei Dayo. So does Reb Tarfon not hold of Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon? Does Reb Tarfon not hold of Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon? V'ha Dayo D'Oraisa. But Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon is taka mida oraisa. It's taka mida oraisa. The Tanya is we learn in the Brisa. Midin Kal V'Chomer Ketzad. How does a Kal V'Chomer? Right? Tell me about a Kal V'Chomer. Vayomer Hashem Moshe. V'avia Yorek B'Faneo Halu Tikolim Shivas Yomim. Well, when Miriam spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu, so she got saras, and the Yidden had to wait for Miriam. So they didn't know how long to wait, right? How long should she go away for? How long do they have to wait? So they make a Kal V'Chomer. They say, well, if she would be sort of embarrassed from her father, she would be embarrassed and sent away for 7 days. Kal V'Chomer l'Shechina, then all the more so when it comes to God, she should be sent away for 14 days, right? So again, they're trying to figure out, right? So they're trying to figure out how long should she be sent away for. Who knows? Well, let's see. If she was embarrassed from her father, she'd be sent away for 7 days. So therefore, for God, it would only make sense to be 14 days. But if we're learning out from her father, right? If the whole Kal V'Chomer is based on her father, that if she was embarrassed from her father, it would be for 7 days. So therefore, by God, it should be twice as much, to be 14 days. But since the Kal V'Chomer is coming on the basis of her father, so let's stick with that basis, which is that it should be 7 days and not 14 days. Meaning, if we're learning out the Kal V'Chomer from the father, well, if by the father it's 7 days, so here also it's going to be 7 days. We're not going to say that it's 14 days. So the question is, does Reb Tarfon not hold of Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon? It seems that seems to be Mida Oraisa, right? We have this Kal V'Chomer in the Torah, and the Torah suggests that maybe Miriam should be sent away for 14 days, and ultimately we throw out that idea. The Torah says, no, it shouldn't be 14 days, it should be 7 days, because since we're learning it out from her father is 7 days, so ultimately she'll be sent away for 7 days, not 14 days. So how could Reb Tarfon not hold of Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon? Well, Ki Leisle Dayo, where Reb Tarfon does not hold of Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon, is Heicha de Mafrich Kal V'Chomer. Look, Reb Tarfon says, if by saying Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon, well then the whole Kal V'Chomer becomes useless, well then don't say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon. Heicha de lo Mafrich Kal V'Chomer is le Dayo. But if you could say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon and the Kal V'Chomer still serves a purpose, well then you could say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon. And now we're going to explain what that means. So Hossam, when it comes to Miriam, where the Torah says Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon, that don't send her away for 14 days, send her away for 7 days, like she would be embarrassed if she was embarrassed from her father. So in that case, by Miriam, where we do say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon, so Hasam Shiva de Shechina lo ksive. The Torah, it doesn't say anywhere how long she should be sent away, because of speaking Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu. It doesn't say how long she should be sent away. We have no clue. So also Kal V'Chomer, comes the Kal V'Chomer, ICR Beisar. So comes the Kavachomer, well, if it was her father, it would be 7. Since we're talking about God here, it only makes sense that it should be 14. It only makes sense that it should be 14. So we went from not knowing anything at all, how long she should be sent away for, to saying, well, from the Kavachomer it should be 14. Also, Dayo, Apik Shiva, V'uki Shiva. And then comes Dayo, Lavo Minadin, Lios Kanidon to say, wait, no, it shouldn't be, don't get carried away, it shouldn't be 14. If the Kavachomer is based on how embarrassed she would be from her father, and that would be for 7 days, so stick with 7 days. So we went from not knowing anything at all to saying 14 to ultimately settling on 7. But now we have an answer. Before we had nothing. Ultimately we had a Kavachomer and then said Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, and we settled on 7. Okay? So the Kavachomer, ultimately, after everything is said and done, after all the Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon is said and done, we learned something, that she needs to be sent away for 7 days. Aval hocha. But over here, in our case, by Chatzinezek, by Karen, well, Chatzinezek Ksiv, we already know that Karen in Rishus Harabim is Chatzinezek. We already know that Karen Rishus Harabim is Chatzinezek. So we would assume that Rishus HaNizak it should also be Chatzinezek. We don't have any other indication. So now also Kavachomer Va'aisi Chatzinezek Achrina. Now comes the Kavachomer, comes Reb Tarfon's Kavachomer to say that, well, with Regel, we're Mekil Rishus Harabim, but we're Machmir and Rishus HaNizak. Ultimately comes the Kavachomer to say that Karen and Rishus HaNizak should be Nezek Shalim. Right? So Vasa Kavachomer Vaisi Chatzi Nezek Achrino V'naisi Nezek Shalim. Comes the Kavachomer and say that in Rishus HaNizak it should be Nezek Shalim. Now, Idarashta Dayo. Now, if you say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon that Karen B'Shus HaNizak should be the same as Karen B'Shus Harabim and it should be Chatzi Nezek, well then Africh Le Kavachomer. Well then the Kavachomer is now useless. I already assumed Chatzi Nezek, right? Karen B'Shus Harabim is Chatzi Nezek. Okay, I'll assume that it would be the same thing B'Shus HaNizak, Chatzi Nezek. Comes the Kavachomer to say that B'Shus HaNizak it should be Nezek Shalim. Now, if we say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, well, then we're back at Chatzi Nezek. So the Kavachomer is useless. It doesn't teach us anything at all. So therefore, that's why Reb Tarfon is unwilling to say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon over there, because then that would make the Kavachomer useless. V'Rabbanon, and the rabbis say Shiva Dishchina Ksive. And the Chachamim say that the 7 of the Shechina is actually written. Right, so the rabbis respond to Reb Tarfon. They say, look, you can even say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, even if it makes the Kavachomer useless, because after all, actually, the pasuk says, right, Tisager Shivas Yom. The pasuk already says that she should be sent away for 7 days. And therefore I already did have a starting point of 7 days. And we use the Kavachomer to say, well, maybe it should be 14, but then we said and we send it back to 7, which is where we started initially, which makes the Kavachomer useless, and still we say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon. So therefore the rabbis argue, you always say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, even if it means that the Kavachomer will be thrown away. For Reb Tarfon, how Tisager Darshin on Dayo? Whereas Reb Tarfon says, no, look, in that case, we need it to say 7 days in order to teach that we say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon. Right, Kilu? I would have thought to say that it should be 14. So therefore, the pasuk says Tisager Shivas Yomim to say that no, don't say 14. It's actually 7, but that's just to teach that we say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, because I wouldn't have known it otherwise. But in every other case, we would not say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon if it means that the Kavachomer would be useless. V'Rabbanon ksiv kra achrina v'tisager Miriam. Right, that another pasuk says v'tisager Miriam chutz hamachna shivas yamim. So we already have a different pasuk that can teach us that we say Dayo. Why did we have to have 2 psukim? The point is that we say Dayo Lavo Min Adin even if it means that then I don't need the Kal V'chomer. Reb Tarfon Ahu Tafilu Ba'alma Darshin Dayo. Reb Tarfon learns out from the second Vatisagar Miriam for 7 days. He learns out that, well, that teaches that not just that we say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon here, but we say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon everywhere. Right? V'lo Tomar, and don't say Hacha, only here we say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon Mishum Kvodo Shamosha, out of the honor of Moses, that Moses didn't want her to be quarantined for so long. He wanted her to just be able to come back sooner, and they would be able to travel and move on. So Aval Ba'amalo, so maybe in general we would not say Dayo. So Kamash Malon, therefore we have the second Vatisager to say that no, generally speaking as well, we say Dayo. Omele Rapape Labai, says Rapape Tabai Beha, Hai Tano Dilo Darish Dayo Vafilu Dilo Mafrich Kal V'chomer. So now Rapape asks Abaye, is it possible that there is an example of somebody who does not say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon, and even though if you were to say it, there would still be something to learn from the Kal V'chomer, right? Meaning Reb Tarfon says, look, I don't say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon if it means that the Kal V'chomer becomes irrelevant. But if it doesn't become relevant, meaning if the Kal V'chomer remains relevant after Dayo, so of course I would say Dayo. Now, Reb Papa asks Abai, is it possible that I found an instance where we have a Tana who does not say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon, even though if he were to have said it, we would still have what to learn from the Kal V'chomer, and yet he does not say Dayo Lavo Min Adin Leos Kanidon. Titania, as we learn in the Brisa, Keri Bizov Minayin. Exciting times. Okay, so a Zav, a Zav guy, he sees Zav stuff 3 times or twice even. So that Ziva is Mitame B'maga Uvemasa, right? If you touch it or if you carry it, it becomes Tame. Now, it's Mitame a person. So now, when it comes to Keri, however, semen, so semen is Mitame B'maga, if you touch it, but not b'masa, not if you if you have like a bag of it and you carry it. Okay, fine. So now, how do I know that if you have a zav and the zav sees keri? Exciting times for this guy. So how do I know that that keri is going to be mitami not just b'maga but also b'masa? V'dinu, we say, well, it's a Kal V'chomer. Matar b'tar tame b'tame, tame b'tar enodin shei tame b'tame. Huh. Chavre, what do you think that means? Matar b'tar, that if you have spit for a tahor person, let's call a guy named Reuven, he's tahor, he's pure, he's not tame, and he spits, his spit is tahor. Now, tame b'tame. Yet, if you have a guy who's a zav and he spits, that spit is not tahor. It's tame. It's tame b'maga, it's tame b'masa if he's a zav. So now, tame b'tahor, if you have semen, if you have keri, which even for a tahor person is already tame, right? It's mitame b'maga. So einu din shei tame b'tame. So then certainly, if you have a zav, his keri should be mitame not just b'maga, but even b'masa. Even b'masa. So we're saying that, so by comparing keri to spit, we can say that, well, just like spit is mitame not just b'maga, the spit of a zav is mitame not just b'maga, but oichid b'masa. So then certainly keri, which is already mitame b'maga in just a regular person, a Torah person, certainly if he's a zav, it'll be mitame b'masa. Okay, fine. So vika maisi la bein lamaga bein lamasa, right? And we're saying that the keri of a zav is mitame both by maga and by masa ve'amai. But why is it mitame b'maga and b'masa? Nema ahani kal v'chomer limaga. Let's say that, look, the kal v'chomer only works for maga. Ahani dayu lafuke masa. Okay. 1 second. Okay, so why don't we say that if we're learning out, right? So I guess that the kavachomer is coming from keri. Wait, why did I think that it was coming from rok, from spit? I don't know. Okay, so we're saying that just like okay. Beseder. So, wow. Okay, so we said that, look, regular spit of a tahor person is tahor, yet when it comes to a tameh person, a zav, so his spit is tameh, and that not just mitame b'maga, but also mitame b'masa. So now, keri, which by a tahor person is already mitame b'maga, certainly then by a zav, which is mitame b'masa. But the question is, right, and we say that is just like rok, right, just like spit by a zav is mitame b'maga and b'masa. So also the keri of a zav will be mitame b'maga and b'masa. But the question is, why don't we say dayolavo minadin leos kanidon, that if we're ultimately learning out the keri of a zav from the keri of a tahor person, that the keri of a tahor person is already tameh, so then, right, b'maga, so then certainly the keri of a zav should be tameh. So why don't we say, well then, just like the keri of a tahor person is only mitame b'maga but not b'masa, so also the keri of a zav is mitame only b'maga and not b'masa, right? I.e., why don't we say dayolav minadin lios kanidon? V'chitema, and if you're going to say that, well, if you're going to say that, well, if I say dayolav minadin lios kanidon, that the keri of a zav is only mitame bimaga, well then, what do I need the kal v'chomer for? I mean, all keri is mitame bimaga, right? So v'chitem, if you're going to say limaga lo itztrich, well, I don't need the kal v'chomer to teach me only maga. And therefore, if I say dayo levo minadin lios kanidon, to say that the keri is only mitame b'maga, I don't need the kal v'chomer at all, right? Right? Lemaga lo itzrich kal v'chomer. I don't need a kal v'chomer to teach me maga to logari migav Torah, because any person, his keri is mitame. Well, any male person. Well, I guess any person that produces keri, I guess that keri is that's like a good. That's the way to go about it these days. A person who produces keri. It's not a male, it's not a female. It's a person who produces keri. Honestly, yeah, I think that makes sense. I think from a technical perspective that makes sense. That a person who produces keri, where was I again? That a person who produces keri, so any person who produces keri, that keri is going to be mitame b'maga. So therefore, I don't need a kal v'chomer to teach me that by zav. Any person who produces keri, that keri is mitame b'maga. So itzrich, nonetheless, I would still need this kal v'chomer. I would not take it for granted that a zav who sees keri, that keri would be mitame b'maga, because Sagadati Chamir, I may have thought to say mikra laileksiv. The pasuk says by keri that a person becomes tameh because he sees keri at night. Misha keri gorim lo. Somebody becomes tameh because of the keri that he saw. Yatzazeh, to the exclusion of a zav, she'ein keri gorim lo. He doesn't become tameh because he saw keri. El davar acher gorim lo. He was already tameh anyways because he was a zav. So I might think, look, keri is mitame b'maga when a person was tahor, he saw keri, now he becomes tameh. That keri is mitame b'maga. But maybe a person who's already a zav, if he sees keri, that keri maybe is not mitame b'maga. So therefore the question is this: why don't we say that? Well, from the kal v'chomer we say that if a Torah person who sees keri, it's mitame b'maga. So then certainly by a zav, his keri should be mitame b'maga, but not just b'maga, but also b'masa. But why don't we say dayolavo minadin lios kanidon, and say that no, the keri of a zav is only mitame b'maga, not b'masa, and that still teaches me something, because I may have thought to say that the carry of a zav should not be tamei at all. So why don't we say dayol avo min adin lios kanidon? Apparently, even if we say it, we would still be able to learn something from the Kavachomer, and yet we are not saying dayol avo min adin lios kanidon. Well, the Gemara says meh midi vilod avacher ksiv. Look, the pasuk when it says mikre laila, we got all excited and hysterical, and we said, well, it says mikre laila, maybe that excludes a zav, right? It's the exclusion of, right, somebody who's davar acher garmlo. Says the Gemara, look, midi velo davar acher ksiv. It doesn't say in the pasuk velo davar acher. No, look, if you see carry, you become tummy. So I already know that if you see right, that carry would be mitami b'maga. I know that. I wouldn't exclude it. I know that it's mitami b'maga, whether you're tahor at the time, whether you're zav at the time, carry is going to be mitami b'maga. Now comes the Kavachomer to say that if carry of a tahor person is tamei, so certainly the carry of a zav should be tamei. It's to say not just tamei b'maga, but also tamei b'masa, and we would not say dayo lava minidin lios kanidon, because if we would, then it would reduce it back to maga alone, which we already know, because any person who produces carry, that carry would be mitame b'maga. Okay. Uman tama d'shamas lei to amr shichva zera shel zav mitame b'masa. Now, who is the Tana that holds that the shichva zera of a zav is mitame b'masa? Lo Reb Eliezer v'lo Reb Yoshua. Well, I'll tell you this: it's neither Rabbi Eliezer nor Rabbi Yoshua. The Tanya is we learn in the Brisa. Shichva zera shel zav mitame b'maga ve'e mitame b'masa de Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that the carry of a zav is mitame b'maga, but not b'masa. For Rabbi Yeshua, says Rabbi Yeshua, af mitame b'masa. Rabbi Yeshua says that the carry of a zav is mitame b'masa, but he explains why. The fish efsher below tzachzuche ziva, because it's impossible that you're going to have pure semen. If you have a zav and a zav sees carry, so it's inevitable that in that semen there's going to be particles of ziva. And therefore, since there's going to be particles of ziva in there, well, ziva is mitame b'masa, so also the semen of a zav is going to be mitame b'masa as well, because of the particles of ziva that are going to be inevitably mixed in. Look, at the end of the day, Rabbi Yeshua is saying that the reason why the carry of a zav is mitame b'masa, in addition to maga, is elish efsher below tzachzuche ziva, because it's inevitable that there's going to be elements of ziva mixed in. That's why it's mitame b'masa. Halavachi. But if we could be certain that it's pure semen, so then it would not be mitame b'masa. So basically, at the end of the day, for pure semen, both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua agree that it would not be mitame b'masa. So who is this opinion who says that it's mitame b'masa? So Elahai Tana, who it's the following Tana, the Tanan that we learn in the Mishnah, L'mayla man, above them. That meaning, it's a Mishnah in, who could tell me where this Mishnah is? Kalim Epis. Kalim. That, look, we list, it lists 3 avos hatuma. It lists keri, it lists tmei meis, it lists sheretz. So these are avos hatuma, that they are mitame adam v'kelim. But there are more stringent avos hatuma. For example, zovo shel zav. The ziva of a zav is mitame, is an avatuma, and it's mitame not just b'maga but also b'masa. Viroko and his spit, v'shich vazaru is semen, umei miraglav is pish, v'dam anida and the blood of anida. So mitamin bein b'maga bein b'masa. These things are mitame b'maga and b'masa. So we see that the shichva zaro, the semen of a zav, is mitame b'masa as well, according to this brisa. V'dilma hachinami lefisha yefsher below tzachzuche ziva. But maybe maybe this brisa is like Rabbi Yoshua, that the reason why the semen of a zav is mitame b'masa is only because maybe there's some ziva mixed in. No, imkein l'snai gabe zovo. Well, if that was the concern, then it should be listed right after ziva. Ma'ishna de katani la gabe roko. How come we're teaching the semen of the Zav next to the spit. Because we're learning it out from the spit, like we learned earlier in the Kal V'chomer, to say that that just like the spit is mitame b'maga and b'masa, so oichet, the semen of the Zav, is going to be mitame not just b'maga but also b'masa, even if it's pure semen. Alright, interesting stuff. So now Amle Ravach Midifti the Ravina says Ravach Midifti to Ravina. V'o hai Tana Lo Dorish Dayo Ve'afagav Lo Mafik Kavachomer. What about the following Tana? The following Tana does not say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon. And even though he could say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, and there would still be value, there would still be benefit to the Kal V'chomer, right? Again, Reb Tarfon says, look, I say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, so long as by doing so the Kal V'chomer does not become pointless. But here we apparently have a Tana who does not say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, even though if he were to have said that, the Kal V'chomer would remain useful. So again, Amalei Ravacha Midifti L'Ravino, V'ho Hai Tana. What about the following Tana? Lo Darish Dayo does not say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon. V'afal Gav Lo Ma'afir Kal V'chomer. And even though if he would say it, there would still be value to the Kal V'chomer. The Tana is learning by some Mapods B'meis Minayin. How do I know that a mat is tamei in the Oel HaMeis? Okay, if you take a mat, like a mat that you sit on, Epis, and you put it in oil HaMeis, how do I know that mat is going to become tamei? So Vidinu, well, we say it's a Kal V'chomer. Uma pachin kitanim. If you have small little jugs, shetahorim bizav, that by a zav they're tahor, because an earthenware jug cannot become tamei from the outside of it. Okay, so if a zav touches, and zav is an avatuma, if he touches the outside of the earthenware, this little earthenware vessel, it will be tahor, because the earthenware vessel cannot become tamei from the outside, only from the inside. And because it's a small little vessel, the zav can't get his fingers in there, it's too small. And therefore, there's be'etzim no way for this small little jug to become tamei from a zav. And yet, mitame b'meis, if this small little jug is in an oel HaMeis, it will become tamei. Well then, mapots shemitame b'zav. Well then, a mat that if a zav sits on it, it does become tamei. Eino din sheitame b'meis. So then, certainly, right, this mat that can become tamei from a zav certainly can become tamei in an oel HaMeis. V'kamaisilo bein the tumas erev bein the tumas shiva. And we're saying that the mat is going to become tamei not just tumas erev, right? Not just like, if a zav sits on the mat, so it becomes tamei only until the evening, but it's like in Oel HaMeis that it's going to be tamei for 7 days. But ve'amai, why would this mat, meaning we didn't know anything about the mat. We had no clue that a mat can become tamei tumas, right? But it can be tamei in Oel HaMeis. We had no clue. We learn it out, we say, well, but if it can become tamei from a zav, so then it can become tamei from an Oel HaMeis. And then we say, not just is it going to be tamei like a zav, right, for 1 day, but like an Oel HaMeis for 7 days. But va'amai ema ahani Kal V'chomer l'tumas erev, v'ahani dayo la'fuke tumas shiva. Let's say that we didn't know at all if this mat becomes tamei in an Oel HaMeis. Let's say that we learn it out from a zav that it can become tamei in Oel HaMeis, but it won't be 7 days like regular tumas HaMeis. Rather, it will be like the zav, that a zav would make it tamei for 1 day. So also this mat can become tamei in Oel HaMeis, but only for 1 day. And if that's the case, right? So we could say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon, and still we would be able to learn something. Right, we would learn that the mat can become tamei in Oel HaMeis, and yet we do not say Dayo Lavo Minadin Lios Kanidon. So Omar Lei, so Ravina responds, Kvar Rama Niale Rav Nechumi Bazchari LeAbaye. Look, Rav Nechumi, you're not the first person to ask this kasha. Rav Nechumi Bar Zechariah asked it to Abaye, V'amale Abaye, and Abaye says, actually, Tana mimapatz b'sheretz ma'isila. Actually, how do you know that a mat can become tamei in an oil ames? Well, actually, it's not learned out from Azov. It's learned out from sheretz. It's learned out from sheretz. BavaKama. This is how to understand it. Mapatz b'sheretz minayin. How do I know that a mat can become tamei by a sheretz? Well, v'dinu. It's a kavachomer. Umapachin kitanim shetorim b'zov tamein b'sheretz. Well, if you have these small jugs that, as we said, by a zav cannot become tamei, and yet a sheretz, which is right, can be tamei b'chadasha, a tiny little sheretz, right, even the size of a lentil, you could drop into this little jug, and now it gets in the inside, and it becomes tamei, right? So again, so if these small little vessels by a zav cannot become tamei, yet by a sheretz it can become tamei, well then mapotz she'tamei b'zav, well then a mat that if a zav sits on it becomes tamei, Enodin shehei tamei b'sheretz. Certainly, then, if a sheretz touches it, it will become tamei. Okay, fine. So ela mapatz b'meis minayin. Now, how do I know that a mapatz is tamei by meis? Right. So we just learned out, right, that a mapatz, a mat, is tamei by a zav. And from there we be'etzem learn out from a kavachomer that it's also tamei by a sheretz. And now we're apparently going to learn from sheretz that the mat is also in tamei in an oil ames. Nemar beged v'or b'sheretz. Well, by sheretz it mentions that that if it falls on a garment or on hide, it will become tamei. V'nemar beged v'or b'meis. And it also says by tumas ames that a garment and a hide can become tamei with tumas hames. So ma beged v'or ha'amud b'sheretz mapatz tamei bo. So we make a gezerah shava that just like by tumas hames, right, meaning it says beged and or both by tumas hames and by tumas hasheretz, and we learned out that by tumas hasheretz it applies to a mat. So af beged v'or ha'amud b'meis mapatz tamei bo. So also by tumas hames, where it says beged ba'or, we're going to learn out from Gezerah Shava that tumas hames would apply to a mat as well. Mufne, and then the Gemara points out that it must be that this Gezerah Shava of beged ve'or that we learn out from right between sheretz and tumas hames. So it must be that this is a kavachomer, this is a Gezerah Shava that is available. By meaning beged and or are extra. They're not needed by sheretz and they're not needed by tumas hames. They're entirely extra for us to be able to learn a Gezerah Shava. The ilo mufne, because if these words were not extra and they were needed to learn other things, well then, ikal mifrach, I would ask the following question. Ma l'sheretz sheken metamim b'chadasha. Tomer b'meis she'en metamim b'chadasha el b'chazayis. I would say, look, I have a question that I can ask here. Look, I understand. It makes sense to say that sheretz would be metame a mat, because sheretz is a more stringent kind of thing in that it's tamei even if it's so small as the size of a lentil. But tumas hames is only metame if it's at a larger amount, at the size of a olive, which means that it's not quite as strict as sheretz. And therefore I might say, okay, fine, so a sheretz is more strict and it's metame even a mat, but maybe a tumas hames, which is less strict, that it only kicks in at a greater shear at the size of a kizayis, so maybe tumas hames would not apply to the mat. So li'ie afnuye mufne, we say that's correct. The beged and or is available to be used for a Gezerah Shava, and therefore that is how we learn that just like by sheretz, sheretz is metame a mat, so also tumas hames is and mat can be tamei in oil hames. Michdei, let's see, right? How do we know that beged ve'or is available? Well, sheretz iskosh l'shichva zera. Look, sheretz is juxtaposed to shichvas zera, to carry. Tichsev, as the pasuk says, "O ish asher teitze v'gomer," right? A fellow that has a seminal emission. And it says right after that, "Oh, isha sheyiga b'chol sheretz," and anybody who touches a sheretz. So, right, we juxtapose in the Torah the tumah of keri with the tumah of a sheretz. Uchsiv be b'shichva zera, and it says by keri v'chol beged v'chol or asher yiyah olav shichvas zera. So we already say beged and or by keri. That if keri touches a beged or it will become tameh. So we already know beged and or by shichvas zera, and sheretz is juxtaposed to shichvas zera. So memele beged and or would be by sheretz as well. That if a dead sheretz falls on beged and or, they would be tameh. So beged v'or dichasav achmana b'sheretz lamali. So then why does the Torah write beged and or by sheretz if I already know beged and or based on its juxtaposition to keri? So shma mina lafnuye. So it must be that beged v'or by sheretz is superfluous and it's available for our gezerah shava to tumas hameis. Ve'akati mufne mitzad echaru. But still, this gezerah shava between sheretz and tumas hameis is okay. So beged v'or by sheretz is available, but maybe it's not available. Maybe it's not free for the gezerah shava by tumas hameis. So if you say that mufne mitzad echad, that when you have when you have a gezerah shava, that it says the same words by two separate places, and if in one of the places those words are needed for a drasha, but in the other place they're in one side they are entirely superfluous and available for to use in the gezerah shava. So if we say lemeidin vein meshivin, it's concrete. As long as one side of the gezerah shava is available to be learned from, so then it's a valid gezerah shava. We can't ask any questions or try to challenge it. So shapir, great. But if you say that when only one side of the gezerah shava is free and available for the gezerah shava, so then so then we're able to challenge that gezerah shava. Well then, what will we say? Because we had a question earlier on this gezerah shava which is, look, a sheretz is mitamim b'chad asha. It's more stringent. Tumas hameis is less stringent. Maybe it doesn't apply to mats. So the meis nami afnuye mufne, to which the Gemara says, well, the truth is that beged v'or by tumas hameis is also free to be available to be learned in the gezerah shava. And here, this is how you know, because michdei meis iskash the shichvas zera, that a mace tumas hameis is juxtaposed to shichvas zera. Dechsiv v'anogeh b'chol tmei nefesh o ish asher teisim imenu v'gomer. Right, that the pasuk says anybody who touches tmei nefesh, which is tumas hameis, oh ish asher teisim imenu shichvas zera, or somebody who sees keri. So we juxtapose tumas hameis and tumas keri. So uchsiv be b'shichvas zera, and it says by keri v'chol beged v'chol or asher yeh olav shichvas zera, and it says by keri any beged or that gets keri on it. So beged v'or the cause of achmana b'meis lamalish mamine lafnuye. So why does it say beged and or then by mace? I don't need it to teach me that a mace can be mitami beged and or, because I already know that, because it says beged and or by keri, and mace is juxtaposed to keri. So ve'ave mufne mishnei tzadin. So we've shown that beged and or is superfluously written by sheretz, and additionally superfluously written by tumas hameis, in order for us to compare the two and to say that just like tumas hasheretz applies to a mat, so tumas hameis also applies to a mat as well. So now we are saying that this mat, okay, so we say that sheretz is mitame a mat and tumas hameis can be mitame a mat. So now we're saying that mat by tumas hameis becomes something for 7 days, not for 1 day, as would be when a sheretz is mitame a mat. So anichel man omer don mina v'uki be'asra. So there's a machlokas of don mina or don mina v'uki be'asra, that when you have a gezerah shava, right, and you're learning something from gezerah shava, do you kind of learn everything from the Gzeira Shava? So meaning, if we're saying, look, we know that a sheretz is mitame a mat. Now we have a Gzeira Shava to allow us to say that a sheretz would also be mitame a what? No, we have a Gzeira Shava to say that tumas hameis would also be mitame a mat. So the question is, okay, for how long? For 1 day or for 7 days? So if you say don mina umina, that you learn everything from sheretz in this case, well, we learn that just like by a sheretz, tumas hameis also applies to a mat, and we would say that just like by sheretz it's for 1 day. So when a mat is in an ol hameis, so also it would become tummy for 1 day, just like a sheretz. That would be don mina umina. But don mina v'uki ba'asr means that we would learn out from sheretz just to make the link. But once we make the link to say that just like by sheretz a mat is tummy, so also by tumas hameis a mat is tummy, well then v'uki ba'asra. Then the rest of the halachos we can now already learn from tumas hameis, which would be 7 days, right? So if you say that, look, the value of the Gzeira Shava is just to make the initial link, and in our case to say that a mat can become tamei and an ol hameis, but the rest of the halachos will learn out from tumas hameis. So that's why the mat would be tummy for 7 days. But if you say that when you make a Gzeira Shava, it's not just a link, but also it brings over all the halachas as well, all the details, which would mean that we learn out that just like by sheretz a mat is tummy, so also by tumas hameis a mat is tummy, but also just like by sheretz it's 1 day, so by tumas hameis it's for 1 day. Michael and Meimar, so why are we saying it's 7 days? On my Rava, on my Kra, says Rava that we have a pasuk that says V'chibastim bigdeichem b'yom hashvi'i, that the pasuk says by tumas hameis that you will launder your garments on the 7th day. Kol tumos sha'atim mitamin b'meis, all tumas hameis lo yupchusin mishiva will always be 7 days, no less, and therefore we have a special Gzeira Shava. So even if you say don mina umina, still we have a special Gzeira Sakosov that says that all tumas hameis is going to be 7 days, not any less. So that was daf chav hey of Masechta BavaKama. Wow, that was kind of a action-packed daf, pretty long. I think it's a pretty long daf. Yeah, BavaKama is like that. The pages aren't so big, thankfully, because if they were big, then that would be insane. But the pages aren't so big, but they're you really have to work through them. So we finally saw the Mishnah where we have the machlokes between Reb Tarfon and the Chachamim about Karen B'Reshus HaNizak. Reb Tarfon says it's Nezek Shalim. The Chachamim say it's Chatzi Nezek. We get into a whole discussion about Dayo Lavo Min Adin Lios Kanidon, and the Chachamim say that we always say it even if it makes the Kal V'chomer irrelevant. Reb Tarfon says no. If it makes the Kal V'chomer irrelevant, then we don't say it. But if the Kal V'chomer remains relevant, then we do say it. With the source being from Miriam when she got tzaras, and okay, then we got into all sorts of other things. Then we got into Gzeira Shavas at the end, an interesting concept of don mina or don mina v'uki ba'asra. Interesting machlokas. Friends, that was daf chafei of Masechta BavaKama. We've enjoyed. Peace out.